The data was showing us that audiences wanted positive content. Overwhelmingly, they wanted positive storytelling, but nobody was giving it to them. The psychology is very interesting because 94% of everything that you see on the news is driven by negativity and fear. From 200,000 impressions a month to 400,000 to 4 million to 40 million to 100 million impressions per month. And we built this movement. It's called Goodable.
Please join me in welcoming Mohammed Lila, a war correspondent turned wellness and tech founder of one of the world's fastest growing news wellness platforms. Welcome, Mohammed.
Thank you so much, Teresa, and thank you, Michelle, behind the scenes for setting this up. And most importantly, thanks to everybody who's on this webinar. I know that time is at a premium, and I'm really looking forward to meeting you all. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my story. Speaking of sharing, quite literally, I'm just going to share my screen. Just give me 1 second. Perfect. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can see this? Teresa, just let me know that we're all good. Or Michelle. Perfect. Thank you. As Teresa mentioned, this is me. I should say I'm not a politician, not an activist. I'm barely a journalist anymore. Um, and no matter what my kids say, I'm definitely not a comedian. Uh, I'm a war zone correspondent. This was my first ever embed in Afghanistan, and shortly after this photo was taken, the Taliban tried shooting down our Black Hawk helicopter. We survived, but I learned a very important lesson in the process. As Teresa mentioned, over the years, I've been shot at, held at gunpoint, survived explosions. I averaged more than 100 flights a year. I've covered every dangerous place in the world that you can think of and reported live from there. Afghanistan, Ukraine, Syria, Gaza, Egypt, Hong Kong during the Umbrella Revolution, you name it. In fact, I think I still have the record at CNN for 226 live shots in a single month. I was literally going live every hour for a period of 4 weeks. And of course, in this process, I've interviewed more world leaders than I can remember. At the end of the session, if somebody reminds me in the Q&A, please ask me to share the secret that His Holiness the Dalai Lama gave me about the secret to living a happy life. He said, don't share it with anybody, but I'm going to share it with all of you. Just remind me at the end. We're here to talk about how one act of kindness can change the world. Yes, it really can. And yes, all it takes is one act. And no, it doesn't have to be big. Over the next 20 minutes, I want you to leave this session feeling great, like feeling better than you ever have, feeling like you can conquer any challenge that's in front of you. You're also going to see the power of kindness firsthand and how it spreads. I'm going to leave some practical guidance for you and how to help your teams grow and help navigate difficult workplace situations. And then, like I said, share the Dalai Lama's secret to happiness. Now, there's something you can do to help me. Because we're not in person, I can't see you. I can't see if you're turning your face or if you're nodding because you're about to go to sleep or you're smiling. I can't tell. So you can help me by smashing those emojis on your screen. I feel like this is the part of the YouTube video where I say smash that like button. There's a Zoom equivalent to that, which is just use those emojis. And if those emojis are not working, just add those emojis into the chat. I'm really good at talking and reading at the same time. And so the emojis let me know that I'm engaging with you and that you're following what I'm saying. And there are going to be some parts around this where I'm going to be asking you questions. First of all, let's just set the stage for a second. We're here to talk about kindness, but the truth is that the world isn't particularly kind right now. Um, it's hard, it's difficult, it's messy, it's negative. And the statistics back that up. 41% of the entire world right now currently struggles with anxiety, depression, or chronic stress. This is data from the World Health Organization. And the best test of this is, can you go to bed, can you go to sleep at night easily? If you struggle to go to sleep, it means you're struggling with something that has to do with your mental health. Um, and so what this means from a workforce perspective is that 2 out of every 5 people that you work with, maybe your boss, maybe the person sitting next to you, is actually struggling right now to be happy. And what this means is that companies lose $12 billion every day, 12 billion days every year due to bad mental health, anxiety, depression, absenteeism, poor workforce morale. In fact, some of your colleagues might have called in sick today because they just were really angry at the world, or they were depressed, or they were in a funk, and they needed that time to themselves. Now, globally, from a workforce perspective, this equals $1.4 trillion every single year. That's how much companies lose because people just aren't happy. It's like the Holy Grail. How do you chase something that everybody in the world wants and everybody in the world needs, but it's becoming harder and harder to get there? I'm going to do a quick test. Um, Many of you on this call have taken the subway or the bus or a train. Almost everyone has taken the subway or a train at some point in their life. I can't see you. Just raise your hand or hit that emoji button so that I know that you've seen the situation. You're on the subway or you're walking through a park and you see someone who just looks so, so sad and miserable. Maybe they lost their job. Maybe their beloved pet just died. Maybe they broke up from a long-term relationship, and you see them on that bench or that chair, and they just look really sad. And you just know they're having the worst day of their life. If I were to give you a button, everyone in this webinar right now, if I gave you a magic button and I said you could press this button and instantly make that person sitting down happy, would you press it? Yes or no? Just throw an emoji, a thumbs up or heart, yes. Keep it coming. Just tap it in. Most people would click that button. And what if I told you the button was free? Didn't cost you anything. I love it when people smile like this because this is so important. And what if that button wasn't just a single use? What if I gave you that button and I said for the next 24 hours, I would hit it twice. Thank you, Christina. What if I said you could press this button as many times as you want? So it wasn't just the person sitting down that was sad. It was every person that you came across. Anybody that looked down at all, you press that button and magically, boom, suddenly they're happy. Would you continue to press it every day? How many times would you press that button? Just write in a number. 5, 50, 100. I'd use that button on my kids. They have a hard life. They come back from school. They commute down to university. It's tough. I would just press that button. I'd be waiting and I would sit there and just do that as soon as they came home, like playing an old video game. So the truth is that all of us would press this button. And I'm going to tell you a secret. It's something we don't talk about. Every journalist in the world has that button on their desk every single day. Every journalist could press that button to make people happy, but we don't. We still think that we can make the world miserable and people will love us for it. I don't understand that. And we don't talk about it enough. But it's true. And to prove this, here's a sample of some headlines from today. I'm not going to read them out because it's going to put everybody in a bad mood. Some highlights: immigrants held at alligator Alcatraz. I didn't know that was a thing. In July, they've disappeared. Wildlife populations in Canada decline. Trump links Tylenol to autism. These are headlines that we're exposed to every single day, not just on your phone, not just on your television. You see them when you're in a hotel. You see them when you're in an elevator. You see them when you're in your office place and there are screens in the lobbies that bring you this bad news. And my personal favorite, but bear in mind, I'm not political, but my personal favorite is that one on the bottom right where a world leader just said your countries are going to hell to literally every country in the world. I've never seen that before, but it just shows you sort of like this negative cycle that we all live in. And if I ask you, is the news positive or negative? Everybody here is going to say it's really negative. If I ask you why, we don't really have a good answer for that yet. Here's a question. How much time does an average person spend every day consuming content that's bad for you? Well, there's the answer. I was going to ask everybody to guess, but the answer is 2.5 hours every day consuming content that's bad for us. Imagine what that does to your brain. Imagine what that does to your mental health. And imagine what that does to your belief that the world is a good place. If I ask everyone on this call, do you think there's more good in the world than bad? What would you say? I'm just catching with the chat, and I saw Haley said pressing that button, she'd lose all the feeling in her fingers, and I love that. So everybody is saying, I love that answer. I used to, by the way, and we're going to get to that. And I have to believe that there's more good in the world than bad. Hey, Francine, thanks for joining. Um, but not sure. These are great answers. So most people will say that there is more good in the world than bad. we just don't get to see it. Like Diane said, there is more good, but we're shown more bad. And I know this more than anyone because for years, I was the one on your news feed showing you all the bad things. When there was an earthquake, when there was assassination, when there was a shooting, a terror attack, I was the one on television who reported and said, I'm standing outside the scene of this explosion. 50 people are dead, 100 more people are injured. Nobody knows who did it. And I would do that every single day. And when I was at CNN, I had a choice because I asked myself a question. I said, how can you stay positive in a world where negativity is all around us? This was me at CNN. Um, I've had people die in my arms. Um, I've had very good friends killed by the Taliban on assignments that I was supposed to be on. Um, I was 5 minutes late to a meeting at an Afghan base. And in those five, that meeting, by the way, was organized for me. Because when a journalist comes from an American network, they kind of treat you like a VIP, and all the senior leadership assembles to do a private briefing with me. We were 5 minutes late because we were delivering books at a nearby village, children's books to a nearby village. In those 5 minutes, a member of the Taliban drove in a pickup truck outside that room with one of those truck propelled machine guns, you know, the ones that are mounted on the back of the pickup truck, and he shot up the entire room. Being late to a meeting for 5 minutes saved my life. And I have to carry the guilt of knowing that people in that meeting were shot severely and critically injured because of a meeting that was supposed to be held for me. I had a choice to make at CNN. I could have spent the rest of my life showing people how bad the world is, or I could spend the rest of my life showing people how good the world can be. I turned into that person on television that showed up on TV whenever bad things happened. And I didn't want to be remembered as that person because I knew in my heart there were good things happening. Good things happen every single day. We just never showed them on the news. And I dared to ask why. So I walked away from a very high paying job. I was on television, 5 or 10 times a day. I couldn't walk into a coffee shop in most major cities without seeing me on the television in that coffee shop. And I walked away from it because I didn't know how and I didn't know where, and I certainly didn't have the money, but I knew that I wanted to make a difference. And so I walked away. When I left CNN, I was not only broke, like financially, I didn't have that much money. I was also broken. There were mornings where I didn't want to get out of bed, and there were days where I didn't get out of bed. There are days that I would just cry for no reason. I couldn't figure it out, and my body was broken. Doctors couldn't figure out what was going on. Doctors, I visited every specialist you could think of, and I got a whole bunch of different things, and nobody could figure it out. And then one day, when I didn't know what to do with the rest of my life, imagine, my dream from a young child was I have a funny sounding name, and I watch television in Toronto. And if you grew up in Toronto and you watch the news, there's a whole bunch of funny sounding names: Harold Hussein, Jojo Chinto, Joe Schlesinger, Ian Hannamansing. These are people I grew up with, and I dreamt of saying one day they're going to say my name on television, and they did. And I did it at CNN. And when I left, I had no idea what to do with the rest of my life. And it was the lowest point that I've ever been. And then one day I saw this story on the news. For those of you who are on a phone, I'm just going to read out the headline. It says, Man charged with assault following alleged attack against Muslim woman on SkyTrain. That's in Vancouver, British Columbia, for those that don't know. And I read the story and I thought, what a horrible, horrible story. That could have been my daughter. That could have been my friend. That could have been somebody that I know. Like, what a horrible thing. And as I read to the bottom of the story, the last paragraph said, the woman was rescued by an innocent bystander who wrestled the attacker to safety and then stayed with the girl to make sure she was okay. That was the last paragraph in the story. And I sat back and I thought to myself, wait a minute. Shouldn't that be the story? Shouldn't the story be that instead of saying a young woman was attacked, how different would it be if the story said young woman rescued from attack by complete stranger on a Vancouver SkyTrain? And it really made me realize that the way that we see the world is shaped by how we perceive positive and negative. And so I said, hey, you know what? I'm a journalist. Let me do some investigating. So I wanted to find out who the person was that saved the young girl. And I did some digging and some investigating, and I finally found his name. And I had a problem because that was his name, Jake Taylor. Does anyone know why that's a problem? Canada has a population of more than 30 million people. Do you know how common the name Jake Taylor is? Try to find a Jake Taylor in Canada. Like you literally just walk outside and hey, Jake Taylor, someone's gonna answer. There's like Christopher Smith, Mike Johnson, and then Jake Taylor. So I had to find Jake Taylor. And I investigated, I put on my journalist hat, and I found him. And this is who I found. Jake Taylor was a 20-year-old kid who had a pretty tough life. He grew up in a small town outside of Vancouver in Nelson, BC. It was a mining town that's not really famous for mining anymore. And it was sort of like on its decline. And he had a rough childhood. He had some issues with his parents. He had a sort of difficult relationship with them. And in some ways, he blamed his parents for a lot of things that happened in his life. And he got up and he moved. He said, "I'm going to go to Vancouver and start a new life for myself because I can't do it here in this small town." And he was in Vancouver to play rugby. And he was the one that saved this young girl. Now, Jake Taylor is a white Canadian, probably like sixth or seventh or eighth generation Canadian. The girl he saved was born in Vancouver, but her parents were Iraqi and she wore a hijab. You couldn't think of two more opposite people. Jake decided on that subway that he was going to do something. Everyone else just watched what was happening, and Jake said, I'm going to do the right thing. And so we said, what if we could do something nice in return for Jake? If I saw him do that in person, I'd say, hey, Jake, let me buy you a coffee. Now, the cool thing about the internet is that it's not just me buying him a coffee, it's literally anyone online buying Jake a coffee. So we launched a campaign. We called it Thank You, Jake. And I just posted it online. And I literally said, who would like to help me do something nice for Jake? And the most incredible thing happened. We started a movement that went global. People started sending us videos saying, Thank you, Jake. And they came from all around the world. I got a message from some guy in Saudi Arabia. I'd never met this guy. And he messages me, he goes, Mohammed, I want to do something nice for Jake. I said, dude, you're in Saudi Arabia. Why do you want to help? And he goes, because that could have been my daughter. He goes, I want to send my kids to Canada to study one day. And I hope there are more people like Jake that are out there. So he goes, what do you want to do? And I said, well, let's raise some money for him and let's surprise him. So we raised, I think, like $5,000 or something in just a couple of days. And I came up with this plan. I asked everybody who gave money to write a letter or to write a note. And I compiled all the letters and I put it into a book. And then I called up the Vancouver Canucks. For those of you that are outside of Canada, the Vancouver Canucks are a somewhat successful, probably not that successful NHL team. Sorry to all the Vancouver people here, but you know it's true. Um, and and I didn't think anything of it. And the next day I got a call, and it was a call on the other line. And he says, "Hey, Mohammed, it's Trevor Linden calling you." And for those of you that don't know, Trevor Linden is one of the top 50 NHL players of all time. He was the general manager of the Vancouver Canucks at the time. And I said, look, I want to do something nice for Jake. And he goes, we love what Jake did. We love what you're trying to do. And I'm on board. He goes, tell me whatever you want us to do, and I'll do it. So I put together that book. I got it like collated. I flew out to Vancouver, and I'd never met Jake before. And I did this thing where I surprised him. So I went to a Christmas market. I gave the book to Santa. Santa went and found Jake, and we were filming this. Santa went and found Jake and said, Jake, I have a gift for you. It's from people who want to say thank you. So Jake, sorry, 1 second. Jake opens up the book and he sees it's a list of thank yous from everybody. And the first letter of the book is from his mom. And he didn't know, he hadn't spoken to his mom in some time. And all his mom wrote was, Jake, I just want you to know how proud we are of you. And that was it. And Jake's, I'm sorry, it's hard for me. I've told this story before, but it's hard for me because I think it's so beautiful. Jake's a big rugby player. He's like six, if you've seen rugby players, he's like 6'2", 6'3", and he got emotional. And just as he got to the end of the book, an envelope falls out of the book. And he opens up the envelope, and it's a note from Trevor Linden. And all the note says is, hey, Jake, see you at the game tonight. And inside that envelope are 4 tickets for him and his friends for the best seats in the house on a Saturday night, hockey night in Canada. That's our equivalent of Monday Night Football, for those of you that don't know. Best seats in the house, biggest night of the week, and they give him the best seats in the house. So he goes to the game, and they give him his own jersey, like he gets the red carpet treatment. And as he goes towards his seat, he's with three of his friends on the right. As he goes and sits down, he looks over at his left, and that's who was there, the girl that he had saved. So we arranged with the Vancouver Canucks to do something special to bring them together. And at the intermission, the lights turn off. This is an arena of, I guess, like maybe 15 or 20,000 people. All the lights turn off and a spotlight goes on Jake. And the announcer says, "Ladies and gentlemen, please join the Vancouver Canucks in recognizing the heroic actions of Jake Taylor, who risked his own safety to save Noor Fidel. They happen to be sitting right next to each other in row whatever it was. Forget the row number." He says, "Please join our organization and the entire city of Vancouver in recognizing his bravery." And the entire stadium gave him a standing ovation. And it gets better. So after he gave him the standing ovation, they got to meet Trevor Linden. That's him in the middle. You can see Jake is really tired, really happy. He's beaming. It's like a legend. And so Jake didn't realize it, but we tried to give him the money that we raised. After the game, we said, "Hey, listen, like we've raised all this money and they want to give it to you. Use it to pay your rent. We know you're going through a hard time." And he refused. He said, "I'm not going to accept this money. What you can do is you can donate it to my rugby team because our equipment's like 20 years old and we could use new equipment." So why am I sharing this story? It's a great story, but it's more than that. You see, Jake had no idea what one single act of kindness would lead to. He didn't think twice. He just did the right thing. What happened? He saved a young girl. He helped put a criminal behind bars. His rugby team. Oh, so he did that. We responded. People around the world saw that kindness can save someone's life. People around the world thought Canada was a great place to live because of him. They're now more likely to send their kids to school here. They're more likely to want to move here and live here. So an entire rugby team got new equipment. People around the world got inspired. Uh, An entire arena gave him a standing ovation. In the days after we did this campaign, other news outlets started profiling him. He got a front page feature in like the equivalent of the Nelson local newspaper saying local Nelson man becomes a hero. We completely turned the narrative around for something bad that happened into something good. And Jake doesn't know this, but his one good thing inspired an entire city and then a country, and it inspired me. Do you remember when I said I was broke and broken? I knew I wanted to save the world, but I didn't know how. And I realized that if I could do this with one story, imagine what I could do if we started only covering good stories. If every headline was "Meet the hero who saved the victim," "Meet the amazing janitor who stopped a school shooting," rather than "See the gunman who caused the school shooting." So Jake inspired me. And what happened after he inspired me was I started posting online and only sharing good stories. And I went from 200,000 impressions a month to 400,000 to 4 million to 40 million to 100 million impressions per month. And we built this movement. It's called Goodable. And Goodable is just about doing good things and seeing good things and being good. And now we reach hundreds of millions of people. And this is me. Well, one act of kindness that he did actually gave me the strength to say, you know what, we can do this. I don't have to risk my life to save someone on the subway. I can just do what I have. I can use what I use, my strength, my superpower in storytelling to change the world. This is my team. We hired a team because of Jake. We raised some money, all that stuff, like the typical startup path. We did it. And today, Goodable reaches 100 million people per month worldwide. If you go into the Empire State Building, if you go into 30 Rockefeller Center, the TD Bank Towers in Toronto, any WeWork location, you're going to see a screen that has CNN, probably the New York Times, and then Goodable. And Goodable is on the screens more than any of those others. And it's because we put positivity and hope out into the world. And if you think this is unique, it's not. I'm going to end this very quickly because I know we're coming up in time. Here's a couple of quick examples. It's not just me. This kid's name is Darius Brown. You've never heard of him, but you probably should. Um, Darius Brown, as you can see, what's the defining feature of what he's wearing? He's a kid who liked bow ties. He would go to school and he would get teased because he liked wearing bow ties. So what did he do? Well, he actually one day went to an animal shelter and he learned that the animals weren't being adopted. It's really hard, like if you see a photo of a dog, to just want to adopt them. So he took off his bow tie and he put it on the dog. Looks something like that. Guess what? Dog got adopted later that day just by having a bow tie. Shelter called up Darius and said, "Yo, did you got any more bow ties? Because we could use them." He started making bow ties, started putting them on dogs. And now there's more than 120 dogs that have found their forever homes because of Darius, because of something people made fun of him for. He found a way to channel that. And first of all, the dogs are adorable. Like, put a dog in a bow tie, and I'm going to watch that. I'm gonna look at that. Most of you would too. But they started getting adopted because of him. So the power of kindness excels. The other example that I give very quickly, Teresa, are we okay on time? Are we over? Like way over?
We can keep going.
Okay. This is the last example before I get to some practical lessons that we've learned. At Howard University, it's a historically black college. They have a dramatic arts program. Yeah, they are, Lena, bow ties are really cool. I can't tie one for the life of me. I've tried so many times, but they're really cool. At Howard University, it's a historically black college. And so there are a lot of people that are on like tuition assistance or have a hard time. In their theater arts program, which is actually widely acclaimed, there was a group one year that wanted to do what do you call it? Like a semester abroad or a few weeks abroad. And they wanted to go, I think it was to London, and the students couldn't afford it. Now, the teacher of that course happened to be a woman named Felicia Rashad. For those of you that are old enough, she was Mrs. Huxtable, and she was teaching the theater arts program. So she called up a friend and said, "Hey, friend, can you donate some money so that our students can go on this exchange program?" The friend that she called was this person right here, Denzel Washington. He said, "Sure. What do you need?" So he funded a group of, I think, 20 or 30 students to go study a program in London. Little did the world know that one of those students was this person right here, Chadwick Boseman, who went on to be an award-winning actor. He was Black Panther in the Marvel universe. When Chadwick Boseman won his biggest award, he went on stage and he said there would be no Chadwick Boseman without Denzel Washington. Denzel didn't know who Chadwick Boseman was. He didn't want to know who Chadwick Boseman was when he made the donation. He just did it. And it wound up producing one of the greatest African American actors in Hollywood history. So, what does this all mean? Let's wrap this all up because time's at a premium. How can you change the world for good? Here's the practical tip part. Some things that we learned through Goodable and some things that you can apply in your workplace. The first hack is that every day is filled with infinite possibilities. You have to know this because it's true. You just don't know what can happen. If you're sitting on the subway, you don't know who you're going to sit next to. If you're at work and you hold the door open, you don't know who you're holding the door open for. Could be a multi-millionaire. I once ran into a billionaire at a conference and I spent 5 minutes with him. I kid you not. He called me up a year later at midnight and asked me to run one of his companies. Like, I don't know who does that. Maybe billionaires do that. I don't know. But it was because I spent 5 minutes with him and I treated him just like everybody else. I was kind and I was professional and I was courteous. You just don't know what can happen. And the key to unlocking this is just to be as kind as possible. Number two, kindness always, always, always spreads. Always. Emphasis on the always. It it never contracts. It only compounds. It's the best investment you can make in yourself, your family, and your team. One act of kindness can literally change someone's life, and you don't know how that's going to pay it back, but it will. It will always spread, and nothing bad comes out of being kind. And lastly, it's a bit of a career hack. When I was in grade seven, I was a really nerdy kid, and I was really introverted, and I didn't know how to make friends. And my grade seven music teacher told me something. He said, "Mohammed, if you want to be popular, then just help as many people as possible. Help them with their homework, help them with their baseball swing, help them with directions for how to get home, help your teachers. When you help people, everybody will like you." And when I went through a depression when I left CNN, it was really hard. And I decided to help people by sharing good news. And guess what? It was the best feeling in the world. And it grew, and we tried to keep it authentic. And so those are some practical things that you can do for your workforce, for your teams, for your families, for your organizations. There are a lot more things that we can share, but I want to just be mindful of time and keep time for questions as well. So I'd like to say thank you to everybody. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for letting me go over time. I haven't checked my clock, so it might be more than slightly, but thank you. And I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody on this call has. And I think
Thank you.
Teresa will
Oh,
manage all the questions.
yes. Thank you, Mohammed. Such moving stories and examples of the power of kindness and just doing one small thing that can have such a ripple effect. And I'm loving seeing all the comments about how inspiring this is and how many people really needed this today. So it's a testament to needing some of that breathing room amidst everything that's going on in the world. Thank you. In terms of questions, looking at, oh, here we go, hold on, the Q&A here. We have a question about, are you familiar with any of the neuroscience behind the importance of seeing good news and how that amplifies? Thanks, Amy.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a really good question. It's something that I became obsessed with. So when I was at CNN, I actually wanted to know why we only covered bad news. Like if you, and it's not just CNN, by the way, it's almost any news network. They only cover bad news. Very, very rarely will they cover good news. And if they do, it's the last story that you'll see on Friday evening at the end of the news week. And I wanted to know why. And actually, the data was showing us that audiences wanted positive content. Overwhelmingly, they wanted positive storytelling, but nobody was giving it to them. Um, the psychology is very interesting because 94% of everything that you see on the news is driven by negativity and fear. That's what the data shows. And the joke is that the other 6% is probably the weather. Um, but but the truth is that almost everything that we see in the news is negative. Now, listen, I believe in showing the world as it is. I think we need to see bad things. It sounds crazy. We need to see what we're capable of. And so when bad things happen, I don't think we should turn a blind eye. But the same principle applies to good things. When good things happen, we need to see those too. The example I give is, um, news is like journalism, it's supposed to be a mirror, right? The content that you see all around you is supposed to be a mirror and it's supposed to show you who you are. And that includes the good and the bad. But we don't see the good anymore. It's like walking into one of those amusement park, like fun fairs. I don't know if you had these growing up. I did, where you walk into like the Hall of Mirrors and the mirrors are all distorted. So in one you look tall and when you look really short, when you, I don't know, have different hair color or something. That's what we look at. But it's not reality anymore. It's a distorted version of reality. And so what we need to do as individuals is to empower ourselves to say, look, I control what I see. I don't have to look in that mirror. I can look in other mirrors. I can look at other sources. And the psychology shows that when you make people happy, this is actually very valuable for anybody who's in marketing. Anyone who's in marketing, event planning, corporate affairs, communications, when you make someone happy, they're 88% more likely to do what you ask them to do. So if you think about politicians, back in the day, politicians used to go to like county fairs and someone would hand them a baby and they'd kiss the baby and they'd give it back to the mother. They did that because they knew it would make the mothers happy. And then the mothers would vote for them. The same principle holds true. If I make somebody happy and I say, and they're happy, and I say, hey, um, how would you feel about booking NSB for your next speaking engagement? Or how would you feel about doing a new workshop where we talk about kindness? Or even just something like, hey, how would you feel about partnering with me on this upcoming project that we're working on? If I've made you happy, you're 80% more likely to say yes. And that's what's powerful. The neuroscience is very strong in the power and science of positive storytelling. Um, and so we're sort of tapped into that. And I wish we had more time because we could do a whole other session on like how content affects your brain. And we became experts at that with Goodable, and we're solving it through AI and stuff. But it's a whole other really powerful conversation that we should be having.
Thank you, Mohammed. We've got a couple more and appreciate those who are sticking with this. Happy to see that there's value in this. And it's so powerful, the reframing that you have done, especially with the news and leading with the hero instead of some of the challenges. Can you give examples of that in business? Because there's a lot of challenging days and situations in business. Examples of reframing that to a more positive approach?
Yeah, I think it starts actually from leadership and leadership like if you're a leader, you have to make hard decisions all the time. There's no way around it. You have to let people go sometimes. You have to sort of reprimand people. You have to make decisions about budgets. The key is to lead with empathy. Um, Somebody told me that you've probably all heard this before, but be very nice to the people that are working under you because one day they're going to be your boss. And I think as you get older, you start realizing that's kind of true. And so it's all about leading with empathy and authenticity, being transparent. So, for example, like if you have to make hard decisions as a leader, um, you know that people may not like you. It's a hard reality to accept when you're at an executive level. You have to make decisions that affect people's livelihoods. The way to do it is through honesty and humility and transparency. And remember, um, I got the nicest note from somebody who left our organization. We had to let him go because he wasn't working out. A year and a half later, he'd start his own startup and he's very successful. And he messaged me when I was in Vancouver, ironically. And he said, "Hey, I'd love to meet." And so we met. And he goes, "I was surprised that you said yes, you wanted to meet because like you fired me." Or well, I wouldn't say fired, but we terminated his contract. And I said, "Actually, no. I'm happy for you. I actually want the best for you. I would have loved if it was the best for my organization. It didn't happen to work out that way, but I still want the best for you." And so I think having this mindset as a leader of wanting the best for people, whether it's at your organization or not, is a big thing that we need to inculcate in leadership in leaders today, is wanting the best for people, regardless of whether it's for you or for someone else. But back to you, Teresa.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. Really generous, and I could see the responses in the chat, and it's a real life example of the ongoing kindness that you try to share in the world, and it's going to make all of our days better. So thank you. I am conscious of time, but there are questions about your Dalai Lama takeaways, so we could end with that.
This is my favorite story in the world, and it changed how I lived my life. When I interviewed His Holiness, he invited us to his home, which he normally doesn't do for journalists, but he invited me into his home. I don't know why, but maybe he saw something in me. And I don't remember a single thing he said in the interview. Like I'm ashamed to admit I don't remember. It was after the interview where I said, "Your Holiness, you're always so happy. Like if you meet him, he giggles. He's like Yoda. He just giggles and laughs all the time, like all the time." And I was like, "Your Holiness, you're always so happy. When in your life were you the most happy?" And I thought he'd say, "When I was in Tibet, when I was a child, when my mother was like, when all these things." And he got deadly serious. He got so serious, and without hesitating, he said, "Right now." Is is it what do you mean? He goes, "Right now. This is the happiest moment of my life." And I said, "Your Holiness, I'm sure you say this to all the journalists who interview you as a way of just being flattering." And he doesn't get angry, but he got really serious. And he goes, "No, no." He says, "Yesterday, just in my mind, just memory, just in here. Tomorrow, maybe happen, maybe not happen. Just expectation in my head, only in my head." And then he said, "But now, in this moment, this is when I'm alive. This is when I'm here. This is when I'm present. It's not in my head. I'm actually here." And he said, "And I have choice, and I choose be happy." And he started laughing. And so whenever people ask me, "How's your day going?" I tell them it's the best day of my life. Even if I'm kind of having a crummy day, like it's raining or your car broke down or something, I say it's the happiest day of my life. And if you frame it that way, it actually is, because it's the only part in your life where you're present. The past is just a memory and the future is just an expectation. So that was the secret that he told me about, that he shared with me about the secret to happiness. It's not easy, but right now you have a choice to be happy. And if you choose to be happy, then this is the happiest moment of your life. That was the secret.
Mohammed, thank you for this shift in perspective, and that can help us do so much good for our own well-being and for each other. And yes, to the Goodable app, thank you so much. Appreciate all of our audience joining and your engagement in the program. Feel free to send any last thoughts as we wrap up. And we would love to bring Mohammed to your audience or to audiences that you recommend to bring that shift in perspective and look for opportunities rather than some of the challenges, and help with mental well-being in the workplace. Our fall series is on a roll. We have 2 more webinars in the works coming up. Watch for your invite. Next month, we'll be joined by neuroscientist and current best-selling author of Future-Proof Your Brain in the Age of AI with Sarah Baldeo. And in November, political and current events commentator and opinion researcher Dale Bricker joins us on the State of the Nation in connection with his fall book release. Thanks so much, everyone, and let's keep doing good. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.